the American dream. To his last breath, he'll always be a soldier.
Heard on great radio stations all across America. It's the National Defense with Randy Miller and Jerry Newberry.
The National Defense is made possible by Ford, Go Further, by the Home Depot, more saving, more doing, by ADT Security, more than just a line in the sand, by VSP. For more information on how VSP can help you with your corrective vision needs, visit their website at VSP.com. By Morgan Stanley. Discover how they can help you reach your long-term financial goals at morganstanley.com. By the Wounded Warrior Project, serving those who sacrificed for over 15 years. Find them online at woundedwarriorproject.org. And by Farmers Insurance. At Farmers, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Find an agent at farmers.com.
This is the National Defense, Randy Miller and Jerry Newberry. And Jerry, as always, our dedication.
Hey, this show's for you, the men and women serving in our military. It's for the millions of veterans out there, and it's for all their families. We're here for you. We love you. God bless you.
Hey, and we love the Wounded Warrior Project.
Yes.
Man, they're doing some great stuff. They're all over the place. John Roberts is based in Houston. He's with us on the program. John, how are you?
I'm good, gentlemen. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, John is the National Services Director, which means benefits, right?
Yes, sir.
And, you know, we started the show for the VFW almost 12 years ago, and very familiar with the benefits program. And I think you guys worked with or maybe got some training from the VFW?
Yes. When we originally started, we worked under the VFW umbrella until we got our own accreditation. But,
gotcha.
Yeah, they're a great organization and very supportive of what we've done over the years. And it's been a great partnership with them.
How long have you been with Wounded Warrior?
Right now, a little bit over 11 years.
Oh, wow.
That's a long time.
Well,
yeah.
And it's amazing, isn't it, John, to see where Wounded Warrior started and where it's grown to in such a short amount of time?
It's absolutely incredible to see the growth over the years.
Yeah.
When we started, just a handful of us, and to the organization that we are now with the just huge amount of programs that we actually offer the Wounded Warriors, it's incredible to see the changes.
Well, talk about some of those programs so people know exactly what you do. You know, there's a lot of organizations out there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some of them don't offer much of anything, but we know Wounded Warriors does.
Well, and John's he's part of a fun one, too, with the... you just got back from the rolling Odyssey?
Yeah, he's tired because he just rolled in from the Odyssey.
Yeah.
On a bike.
I tell you what, perfect timing, guys. One of my something that for me has been therapeutic over the years has been riding a motorcycle.
Yeah.
And in 2007, you know, I do benefits, but my passion, because of some of the struggles I had after my injuries, dealing with PTSD, it's really been this great combination. WWP allowed me to create a program called Project Odyssey. And that's basically a PTSD retreat-based program. And it's, to me, it's an incredible program, very successful, helping these warriors reconnect with other warriors that are struggling with similar symptoms and issues at home. And when we partnered with Harley-Davidson Motor Company, because I'm a writer, I was asked, what exactly do you think we can do with Harley? And I said, well, I took about a minute, and I said, well, we're going to put Project Odyssey on two wheels. Wow. And we're going to take that retreat model and do it on motorcycles. And the first one was extremely successful, and they allowed me this past week. We did our second one out in San Antonio, running through the hill country. And to see these warriors from day one to yesterday evening was the transformation, the connection they had with other warriors, seeing that they're not alone. I mean, when you look at the fact that 77% of our registered alumni say they have issues with PTSD, those numbers are just staggering. And the first thing you can do is just get them connected. get them out of their comfort zone at home, and get them around other warriors dealing with the same thing with a common interest. I mean, normally we all have that shared common bond that we all served in uniform. We all struggle with PTSD. But then you throw in motorcycles on top of it that they have this passion for, and we call it wind therapy or throttle therapy. Just getting out on the open road and sharing experiences with one another is just unbelievable.
So it sounds like what you do is you meet somewhere and you make a run. Is that correct?
We do, but it's a lot more than that. So the writing is great, but the conversations that take place throughout the event, where they see that, a lot of us isolate because of our PTSD, we're trying to avoid those triggers that we may have issues with when you're dealing with PTSD. So sitting in your home in a safe environment where you're not going to be triggered and you feel like you can put your walls up and be okay. But we kind of drag them out of that comfort zone, and we get them around other warriors with similar issues, and they start to see that they're not alone, and they can learn from one another about how they deal with things, how they cope. But we start to set goals. So it's, what do you want to do moving forward? And they're not big goals. It's short term.
Yeah.
What do you want to do to move forward to be successful?
You want to stop them from hunkering down in the bunker, in other words.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's one of our major programs that we started with is our alumni program, or basically it's running events that get them out of that comfort zone and get them around other warriors and start the healing process.
Well, and that mission isn't going to, I can't see that mission diminishing because, a lot of times PTSD doesn't manifest itself some years later.
John, you talked about 77%, which is a, astronomical percentage of people who have dealt with PTSD. But, that's probably, that figure's probably higher. There's still a stigma about admitting it. And a lot of people have problems with that.
Well, that's unfortunately very true. Is admitting you have a problem like that is very difficult for many. And I think, yes, the numbers would be greater if people understood that PTSD is really just a normal reaction to a very bad situation.
Yeah.
And if they are able to see that in a way that is not negative, I think more individuals out there that are maybe suffering in silence would get a lot more help.
Yeah, and you talk about your situation because what a great guy to lead this effort, Marine vet, and survived a helicopter crash in Bosnia. I mean, and you went through your problems with PTSD. I mean, this has got to be just always therapeutic for you too, right? Dealing with these other folks.
Well, just like the first Project Odyssey in 2007, I wasn't sure what I was doing, but I came out of it feeling better about myself. And I'm supposed to be the guy leading it, but I think I learned as much from the warriors as hopefully they did for me. But I got to tell you, yes, every time I engage with these individuals, I mean, this group we brought together this week, complete strangers, very uncomfortable going into a situation. They weren't sure what was going to happen. And by the end of it, you came out with, 12 brothers that you could pick up the phone and when you're having a bad day, have that support network.
Wow, that's great. Well, and as a National Services Director, I mean, boy, you just can solve a bunch of problems at one time, can't you?
Well, we try, and that's the amazing thing. I've been doing VA benefits for 20 years now, and I think part of the problem veterans have in general is just not knowing the laws, the regulations.
Yeah.
There's a lot of red tape involved with the VA. It's all about evidence. It's all about being able to prove what happened in service relates to what you have now.
Yeah.
And a lot of veterans get frustrated with the system. But it's really one of those things where if you have the evidence, I used to work for the VA, to be perfectly honest, for many years, and there are a lot of great people there, despite some of the reputation, and they want to do the right thing, but there are restrictions and red tape they have to go through to make things happen.
Yeah, VA employees don't make the law.
No, they don't.
But unfortunately, they're the messenger, and people tend to want to kill the messenger.
Yeah,
a lot of times.
Right.
Yeah, I have nothing but praise for the VA myself, and
you went through the entire process.
Yeah, well, I didn't have much praise for it back in the day.
I was going to say, yeah.
But VA, you look how many millions of veterans rely on the system, and
yeah.
It's
it's tough, but having advocates like the staff I employ, they are very dedicated, very knowledgeable. At some levels, we're going to be perfectly honest and sometimes brutally honest.
Yep.
And that may not be what the individual wants to hear, but I would prefer to be honest up front, get the evidence we need, and let them be successful, because we all know what the appeals process is with the VA. It's very long, very frustrating. And if we can do it right the first time, I really don't want to go back and try to wait years to get it accomplished.
Yeah, and because all you're doing is adding to the veterans' frustration, and that if they do have some issues like PTSD, that just compounds everything.
Well, John, listen, thank you for your service. Thanks for everything you guys are doing at Wounded Warrior Project. And what's the best place for people to get some information about, especially about benefits and some of the other programs?
Yeah, absolutely. If they go to www.woundedwarriorproject.org, they can look at all of our programs that we offer, anything dealing with employment, benefits, physical health and wellness. One of our major focuses is definitely mental health. We have some incredible programs there. And the big one is our alumni program, just getting registered.
Yeah.
They're going to get an email weekly that tells them what events in their area are taking place. So they can start to, get away from that isolation, get out in the community and start to re-engage again. And, there's also our resource center. If they may have needs that we don't necessarily fill.
Right.
And we have a list of organizations or resources out there that we can connect them with.
Rolling Odyssey. That's a cool name.
Cool. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. John, thank you so much, man.
Thanks,
we
pal.
really appreciate the time.
Thank you, gentlemen. I really appreciate it.
We'll be right back with the National Defense right after this word from Farmers Insurance. When you're dealing with life's ups and downs, it helps to know the ins and outs of insurance. Farmers Insurance has been sharing practical insurance knowledge for more than 89 years. At Farmers, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Find an agent at farmers.com.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Welcome back to the National Defense. It's Randy Miller, and time for another Morgan Stanley Money Brief. And here with us this week is Peter Perez, Senior Vice President and Wealth Advisor for Morgan Stanley. Peter, how are you?
Fantastic. The weather is lovely.
Yeah. I'm glad it's not hot. Hey, you and I have been on this whirlwind tour of credit the past few weeks, and we've covered a lot of ground. It was great stuff. What's next?
Well, before we begin, I want to emphasize that in the units that I led and commanded, credit was always what seemed to get my guys in trouble, get soldiers in trouble everywhere.
What do you mean by in trouble?
Well, it's so easy to borrow money, especially from the lenders who offer money at high interest rates. Mm-hmm. It seems like they're trying to give it away, right? And of course, sometimes we find ourselves short of money, and it's only natural to want to borrow from someone to cover the difference.
Sure.
The problem when we borrow is that we're taking money that we'll earn in the future, and we're spending it today.
Right.
And then when the future comes, we find ourselves short of money again, and so we need to borrow still more.
Yep.
If there's one thing I want your listeners to fully understand, and that's to do their best to avoid borrowing entirely, especially from those, who charge really high interest rates.
Right.
Yeah, that would include credit cards, payday lenders, pawn shops and the like.
Yeah, but Pete, sometimes people have no choice but to borrow.
I hear you. I can't tell you how many times I bought food and formula and diapers for my troops under my command just to help keep them from borrowing.
Yeah.
But sometimes you got to borrow money.
All right, so this is coming together for me. We talked about a FICO credit score that serves two purposes, makes getting access to credit possible, as well as sets how much that credit costs, right?
Exactly. This is critically important because having a high credit score means that your listeners can avoid the lenders of last resort.
Yeah.
Those with the high killer interest rates. And your credit score is a long pole in the tent, so to speak, in this process.
Okay, since the credit score is so important, can you please tell listeners how they can check and monitor their credit score?
Sure, but the thing I want to emphasize to your listeners is that when they need to borrow, consider reputable banks and credit unions on base first.
Yeah.
And then look at reputable banks and credit unions off base next. And if at all possible, avoid payday lenders and pawn shops.
Yeah. I mean, I have heard so many horror stories.
Exactly. So, a solid credit score will allow your listeners to borrow from the most reputable lenders at the lowest interest rates. So here's how you monitor your credit rating.
Good.
Your listeners can go to www.annualcreditreport.com, or they can go to www.creditkarma, that's with a K, .com.
Okay.
At these sites, they can see what their credit rating is. Remember, 300 is the lowest, 850 the highest. You should always try to keep your credit score as high as possible because it will always keep your cost to borrow money as low as possible.
Yeah. Pete, this has been some really good stuff that all of our listeners will find useful, will help them out. Thank you so much for the time.
The pleasure has been all mine, and as always, thanks to your listeners for their service.
Pete, thanks for your service, and we'll be back next week with a brand new Money Brief from Morgan Stanley right here on the National Defense. Welcome back to the National Defense. It's Randy Miller and Jerry Newberry, and we love Fisher House.
Oh, there's nothing better than Fisher House.
Yeah, and we've talked to a lot of people from Fisher House. Brian, I don't think we've talked to you before. Brian Gawne, Vice President for Community Relations, is here on the National Defense. How are you?
Terrific. Great talking with you guys today.
Hey, great to talk to you, too. Now, I don't think you've been on the show before, have you?
I don't think so, but always a first.
Yeah, and you guys have always a lot of things going on. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about your military history.
Yeah, man.
Oh, yeah. I mean, commander of the F-18 squadron. That's about as big as it gets.
First F-18.
The first two-seat Super Hornet squadron. So I did most of my career flying F-14s. Was a commander officer of a squadron at during 9/11, and then transitioned from Tomcats to the two-seat version of the Super Hornet. So we were the first squadron to do that.
So you did the aircraft carrier crazy stuff too, huh?
I've got plenty of time on aircraft carriers.
Man, that's something. I can't even imagine being the skill that takes. Oh man, and the guts.
Yeah, right.
Because I wouldn't do so well because I know I'd have my eyes closed.
Right. Yeah, that's all Top Gun stuff, isn't it?
It's good stuff. You bet.
Yeah.
I started flying F-14s right when that movie came out.
Really?
It was a good time to fly Tomcats.
Yeah, I'll bet.
What was your call sign?
I won't say it on the radio.
So that good, huh?
So,
you bet.
Listen, I was a grunt, and I owe a lot to pilots. Let me say that up front. However, I was a paratrooper, and I always took issue with, pilots are always portrayed in the movies as having babes dripping off of them.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think paratroopers probably did better in that respect. What do you think, Brian?
I might challenge you on that.
So now you've been with Fisher House since 2010, is that right?
Yeah, I was still on active duty. I was on terminal leave when I came here in 2010 and retired, and this opportunity came up, and it's been absolutely fantastic.
How were you lucky?
Opportunity to continue to get.
How were you lucky enough to find that opportunity?
Yeah, really.
I had a good friend who was a vice president. He had, for Fisher House, he had been on the Wounded Warrior Commission, the Dole Shalala Commission with Ken Fisher. And when he retired, Ken said, "Hey, you're going to come work for me." And they had an opening, and he called. His wife actually told me about it. She'd worked with me in the Pentagon and said, "Hey, why don't you think about this?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what I want to do."
Wow.
And,
yeah.
Years ago, never looked back.
We've been around. We've been doing this show about 12 years.
Yeah.
And I've been in the veteran community for more years I even want to mention. And I've worked for a national organization. And I can't think of any other organization that has been more focused and more accomplished than Fisher House.
Yeah.
Well, this goes back to the Fishers. I mean, from the start with Zach Fisher, when his brainchild to do this back in 1990, to Ken Fisher, his grandnephew, who's still incredibly involved in the foundation. It's been nice to be able to grow from the first houses at Walter Reed and Bethesda back in 1990 to the 76 houses we've got today.
Wow!
And we've got 8 under construction, and we're getting ready to start 3 more.
Man.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
It's just been continuous growth, always meeting the need. And, man, you're really a lucky guy to be working there.
Brian Gawne is our guest,
privilege.
Vice President for Community Relations for Fisher House. And, Jerry, you mentioned meeting a need. And Brian, even with 76 houses open and all of these under construction, probably still maybe lags behind the need a little bit, huh?
Yeah, we've just scratched the surface. We started out with the military houses, making sure that we had Fisher houses next to the major the major military medical centers.
Right.
And then a few years back, a nurse wrote a letter to Zach Fisher saying, "Hey, love what you're doing for the military, but, we've got a lot of veterans that could use this resource." And we built the first one in Albany. Today we've got over 30 Fisher houses at VA medical centers, but that's where the real growth is. There's over 130 major VA medical centers, so we've got a long way to go. And some of those locations can use more than one. I mean, we've got 3 Fisher houses, 20 suites each down at Houston, just because that medical center is so important, and they refer out to so many of the major Texas medical centers down there as well. A lot of people don't know that the VA oftentimes will refer patients to civilian hospitals for specialized care.
Yep.
Yeah, and Fisher House makes it possible, of course, for the families to be there, the loved ones.
Yeah, and with an aging veteran population, it just stands to reason there's an increased need. It's just it's not going to go away, let's face it.
Yeah.
No. I mean, the VA has over 6 million veterans in the healthcare system today. And as you say, that's not going away. They are aging out. I mean, there's definitely a need. And, every time we build a house, it's amazing how quickly that house builds up. The houses that we build today, usually around 16 suites, so, 16 families we could help on any night. Tonight, over 1,000 families could stay at a Fisher House. We've got that capacity, and we're growing.
Yeah, and for those who might not know, there's no charge for this.
Right.
Yeah, that's the beautiful thing. I mean, since we, built the first houses back in 1990, we served over 335,000 families.
Wow, man!
That's over 8 million nights of lodging that we provided. And then if you just do the math, what that, if they were staying in hotels for the night, that's over $407 million we've saved families so they could be by the bedside of their service member, their veteran.
And not just the money aspect, though, Brian. You think about those millions of nights that these families would have been disconnected and would not have been able to be there.
Yeah, and that's an important part of the recovery process.
Yeah,
so, having a successful recovery is remaining connected, and because it's tough when you're alone, and you got to face some of those things.
Our motto is "A family's love is the best medicine." And when you got a service member or a veteran in the hospital and having their loved one by their side, gives them motivation to give better. The best one I ever heard was a wounded warrior who's down at Brooke Army Medical Center, and he said, there's a network of families in those Fisher houses, Now, I didn't have one mom looking after me. I had 10 moms looking after me. So that's a lot of motivation to get better right there.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, that's pretty cool. Well, you guys have something coming up, Brian. It's really a great event, the world's largest golf outing. And this was started, I guess, Billy Casper had...
The largest than the Open, largest than...
World's largest golf outing, and a couple of years ago, Billy Casper Golf reached out to us. They pick a day a year where they want to give back, and so over 100 golf courses across the country. We'll have tournaments, and if folks want to know more, they can look up World's Largest Golf Outing on the internet. And you can register, and the proceeds will go to Fisher House and help us build new houses. In fact, I'm going out to Chicago for a tournament out there to play, and we've got some of our folks all over the country, from Arizona to Connecticut, and from California to Florida.
So is this all done simultaneously on the same dates?
They try. Most of them are going to do it on Monday, the 6th of August. Just the week after next. A couple of them courses might do it the day before. Some of them had things scheduled, but they can look up WLGO, World's Largest Golf Outing, on the internet, and it'll tell you. You can punch in your zip code or state, and it's got a list of all the courses across the country.
That's cool.
That is great.
That's cool. Yeah. And Brian, are a lot of these courses, are they good? Like, what's the one in Chicago's doing it?
I'm going to be at Highland Woods Golf Course, but there's some real top-tier ones.
Yeah.
There's one of our favorites. There's one up in Connecticut that actually gives pies to all the
Really? Gives pie?
We fight over that one.
Man, I'm all about that.
I mean, really? Oh, boy, that's cool.
I love me some pie.
Well, what kind of money did that raise last year?
That raised a few $100,000 for us, and we're expecting to exceed that. And, the really great thing is just the awareness to let people know about Fisher House. You get 100 golf courses and all over the country and a tournament worth of folks. A lot of folks know what we do, but, we're one of the best-kept secrets.
Yep.
We don't buy Super Bowl commercials. We don't direct mail. We don't telemarket. And get an opportunity to spread this word about the message of how we're helping military families during a medical crisis is just a windfall for us.
Well, you can bet you get two of Fisher House's biggest fans sitting right here talking to you right now.
Yeah, we appreciate that.
And the other thing, Brian, about Fisher House, you don't toot your own horn, and yet people know from Charity Navigator to a lot of these other sources that Fisher House, every penny that goes into Fisher House is used for the right purposes.
And I have never ever, and no one else has ever heard a negative word about Fisher House.
Nope.
Well, most of us that work there are either former military or military spouses or a military parent. It's personal for all of us. We have a loved one that's done this, and we want to give back, and we want to do it the right way. The other part of this that's really important is our leadership. It's called the Fisher House Foundation, and the Fishers, that's their name and their reputation online. Ken Fisher, is following the legacy of Zach, and they want to do the right thing for the right way because they've invested their name in this foundation.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Well, your service to your country while in the military and your continued service now, man, that's I'd like to be able to meet you someday and shake your hand.
That's great stuff.
Yeah, the guys, it's a privilege, and we've got a chance between the things that we do. We build the houses. We also have a scholarship program. Last year we gave 700 scholarships to military children. We gave another 400 scholarships to children of service members that died or 100% disabled as a result of their service. We also have a program called Hero Miles, where people can donate their frequent flyer miles.
Then
we use that to fly families to the bedside of wounded, injured, and ill service members. And also we even help some other nonprofits with big events. We did over 5,000 plane tickets through that program last year.
Wow.
And you can try buying a short notice, open-ended ticket.
Oh, yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Right.
And those cost about, if you had to buy that, it'd be about $1,200.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Multiply that times 5,000,
right.
and that's
wow.
That's some savings to families.
Well,
right
you
there.
talk
Most
about eliminating some stress in some families.
Yeah, that's just tremendous work.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, we get lovely letters and comments from folks. I would not have been able to afford to go out and see my son or my father or whoever's in the VA hospital or the military hospital, but you made it possible that folks who donated these miles got them to the bedside so they could be there by their loved one. And it's helping, World War II vets that are, terminally ill, and, the last chance for folks to see them, all the way to young service members that are serving today in Iraq and Afghanistan. And what a lot of folks don't know is, at military hospitals, it's not just the service member. Sometimes it's the military spouse that's got breast cancer, or a young military couple that's got a child born prematurely, and they're holding vigil at the hospital, and now they've got a place that's only steps away if something goes wrong. And it's a readiness issue to let these families know that they're going to be taken care of, and the service members not have to worry about them. That's important to our military.
Here's a guy, Randy, I can tell you without meeting him. Yeah, I already know. Here's a guy that wakes up in the morning and he can't wait to get to work.
Right, exactly.
Because he loves what he's doing.
Yeah.
I love my job. My wife was a nurse. My oldest daughter's a nurse. She actually worked at Walter Reed for a while.
Wow.
My son today is a Navy helicopter pilot. It's personal for us.
Yeah. So. That's great stuff. Brian, thanks for the time, man. Good luck with the event. And, we'll obviously continue to support Fisher House and everything that you guys are doing.
Hey, great talking with you. I'd love to come back sometime if you'll have me.
Love to have you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Brian Gawne, the Vice President for Community Relations for Fisher House. We'll be right back with the National Defense right after this word from Farmers Insurance. When you're dealing with life's ups and downs, it helps to know the ins and outs of insurance. Farmers Insurance has been sharing practical insurance knowledge for more than 89 years. At Farmers, we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two. Find an agent at farmers.com.
We are farmers. Bum, 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 bum.
Welcome back to the National Defense. It's Randy Miller, and it's time for another Eye Insights from VSP Vision Care. Dr. Tim Jankowski is with us. Dr. Jankowski, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Signs your child might need glasses. I think not a lot of people know exactly what to look for, and you can help us out here. Why would a child ever squint or appear to strain their eyes trying to focus on an object? Why would they do that if they is that a sign they need glasses?
Well, most of the time it revolves around an uncorrected vision problem, with nearsightedness and astigmatism actually being the most likely culprits for causing children to squint.
What could it mean if a child is turning their head at an angle to see something?
Well, that's a completely different problem completely. It may not be a actual vision clarity issue. Most often, that's actually where the muscles, and by the way, there's 6 muscles that control the movement of each eye, where they're not all working together as a team. They may be working opposite of one another, or you may even have a muscle that's not working as well as it should be working.
So they're straining or trying to get a different position in order to see something, right?
They're actually getting it at their head at an angle to actually maximize the muscle strength and coordination the best way that they can do it. But obviously that's not a normal thing to have you tilt your head in order to be able to read properly.
So what if you see your child lean in closely during activities like when they're drawing or their homework or puzzles or something like that? If they're really leaning in closely, what about that situation?
Well, to me, when I hear that from my patients and the parents, it almost always indicates that the muscles that control the physical focusing and making things clear up close, these muscles are overworking themselves. And the more they work, the closer you have to hold things in order to be able to see things clearly. Simply telling a child to push the material away doesn't necessarily solve the problem, because farther away may actually be blurry at that point. It's very fatiguing, obviously, to work that hard. Plus, when you talk about schoolwork, if the eyes are already fatigued, it makes it very difficult for the child to learn as well.
Right. And that's where you go back to, I think, as a parent, some common sense stuff, obviously getting an exam, but then, taking a break and things like that. What about noticing your child closing one eye when they're trying to focus?
Well, this one's a little bit near and dear to my heart because that was me when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it took over 18 years before somebody finally told me what the problem was. And the problem happens to be that the eyes are not working well together as a team. And a hallmark symptom of the problem that you have is that children can get sleepy and tired when they're reading. They sometimes find that as they're reading along, they don't really pay attention. They don't know where their brain has been, but they're not paying attention to what they're reading. And finally, in terms of the sequence, they end up having to close an eye or cover an eye to prevent from seeing double.
Wow. And that could be picked up in an eye exam?
Absolutely. It can be picked up in an eye exam. And it's something I make sure that all my children, patients, young children, we do these tests just to make sure that there's no problem, because most of the time the children just assumes, just like I did,
right,
that this was absolutely perfectly normal and that everybody experiences these problems when they don't.
Huh. Yeah, if you can get it done one way by closing an eye, then you don't think about it, I guess.
No, you don't think about it. You just do what works.
So, Dr. Jankowski, in general, if a child is avoiding certain activities like reading or playing games that might require them to focus, could that be a sign of a problem?
Yeah, those are really good points. The child should definitely have their eyes looked at if they're experiencing any of those types of things. If they don't like reading, it's usually because the muscles that control the actual physical focusing of the eyes to make things clear are not working really well. And if they're not playing games, particularly where it requires hand-eye coordination, their depth perception may not be working really well either, which is oftentimes a muscle coordination issue.
So get the exam, find out about what the problem is with your kids, and then get ready because VSP Vision Care has got some pretty exciting news, especially for this audience, right?
Absolutely. VSP is currently a vision care carrier for hundreds of thousands of federal employees through the federal dental and vision insurance program. And there's great news because certain retired members of the uniformed services and their families, as well as most family members of active duty servicemen and women, will be offered vision care coverage beginning in January of 2019. And for more information on this and to enroll, please visit tricare.benefeds.com.
Oh, that's great news. That's good stuff. Dr. Jankowski, thank you so much. We'll be back here with a brand new Eye Insights from VSP Vision Care next week, right here on the National Defense.